There is absolutely never a reason to give up 1 ounce of freedom for the sake of security. It won't work.
I would like to direct this to the distinguished members of the panel. You lousy corksuckers, you have violated my Fargan rights. This salmon-unbatching country was founded so that the liberties of common patriotic citizens like me could not be taken away by a bunch of Fargan iceholes like yourselves. Thank you very much.
You can't stop insane people from doing insane things by passing insane laws. That's insane.
A gun buyback that forced law-abiding citizens to surrender their firearms in a nationwide roundup and meltdown of all semi-automatic firearms and pump-action rifles and shotguns. 640,000 ordinary conventional firearms confiscated and destroyed.
It was an absolute joke and a tragedy. I actually turned in 3 firearms and it broke my heart.
I mean, it was 40 years of collecting and I can't say it any other way than that. I felt sick. I had to hand them in because if I didn't I was going to jail.
There's no ifs or buts about that. By taking that gun away from me, they've stolen something from me.
A right stolen by their government, promising safety in return for its gun bans. But now citizens know the frightening truth. The cost of lost liberty can be measured in the loss of life.
It's become very, very obvious, even to Blind Freddy, that the expenditure of $500 million has done absolutely nothing to reduce crime.
It certainly didn't do what the government touted it would do, which was to reduce crime. It hasn't done that at all. In fact, there's been more.
This has been a lot of bull and hasn't really done much to help society and with its problems.
Cold, hard facts the anti-gun forces can no longer escape. Armed robberies have skyrocketed, up 69%. Assaults involving guns rose 28%. Gun murders increased 19%. And a new phenomenon, home invasions jumped 21%. An increase politicians insist they can't explain because they're still trying to legally define what a home invasion is and what the penalty should be.
Part of the difficulty is that there is no clear definition of home invasion in the law.
Never cease to be amazed at the ingenuity of lawyers.
If the politicians want a pay rise, boom, that's done in 20 minutes. But to define home invasion, what a joke.
I have no trouble at all in defining what a home invasion is. I think if someone sets their foot inside your door uninvited, they are invading your home and your privacy.
And victims who have survived home invasions don't need a definition. They've lived through hours of terror. Arthur Field was tied up, his hands and feet taped, his phone lines cut, while 2 robbers ransacked his house.
And they jumped on me and knelt on my chest and grabbed me around the throat because I immediately started calling out, "Help."
I don't know how many men, they start smashing the windows. There was a lot of glass shattering, a lot of noise outside, and I stood in the kitchen, I was trembling.
The Zawadzkis remember thugs running through their home, demanding money and threatening to kill them. Mr. Zawadzki says if he had a firearm, the suspects never would have gotten away.
Do you will stand, waiting till you get killed? Or you will defend yourself? Tell me true, you will defend yourself.
Scars that never heal, citizens left powerless. But it's criminals who have been empowered and emboldened by the new gun laws because the innocent can't fight back.
What's happening today is that the offender, the bad guys, are happy to break into somebody's house. They're not frightened to break into somebody's house while they're at home.
Citizens denied the right to protect themselves by a justice system that won't.
Well, my opinion of the legal system here is it's absolutely weak. Weak as water. I mean, they've just got no backbone. That the sentencing for various crimes is just pathetic.
And police who can't. They're undermanned and morale has never been lower.
It's very bad at the moment. It's never been worse. Since 1993, we've had a real decrease in over 230 sworn police officers in this state.
These policemen have joined the job, policewomen have joined the job to go out and do it, and they can't even attend at breaks or assaults because there's no vehicle to even get them there. I mean, that's just absolutely ridiculous.
Gun laws that have backfired. And Australians who have been forced to hide behind bars and deadbolts. Some are even installing extensive security systems because the firearms they still own that haven't been banned have to be locked up, unloaded, and unavailable.
I mean, get real. If I have someone break in here, I've got to go get the bolt, get the rifle, and find the ammunition somewhere else, put it all together, and then defend myself if this other person's got a firearm that's going to threaten my life. No way. It doesn't bloody add up.
A political fraud. Gun bans that haven't made a difference, and gun owners now struggling to stop a growing momentum against them.
The people pushing the removal of guns from the Australian society are already saying that's only the first step. Publicly, that's only the first step. Now we want the handguns, we want every other firearm.
They're warning to Americans, don't think it can't happen to you. It can, and it already is.
Unless you, as a firearms owner, get off your butt now and start to oppose those that want to take them off of you right here and now, I would say that within 5 to 10 years, the restrictions on gun owners in America will be similar to what happens in Australia.
Don't trust your politicians. Get in there, keep on their backs. Be a member of the NRA, be a member of your local gun club.
Be part of the NRA and never, ever, ever give up your freedoms, because that's, in the end, that's all you've got.
If you think you have rights, tomorrow the government can take them away from you.
I think the Americans have to be very, very careful because, you know, their rights will be quickly eroded as ours have, and we don't have a chance in hell of getting those rights back.
Our freedom is at stake.
People want freedom. They want to be able to hunt.
Liberty is the word.
Everything is going, our traditions, and this is what we're fighting for.
They marched in protest, a silent procession of a people grasping for one last chance to resist, shamefully admitting they only have themselves to blame for government policies that threaten their way of life, their security, and the future of democracy in Britain.
We've been very apathetic for years, and now we're paying the price for it.
It's a disgrace, really. And we've seen these fundamental liberties eroded in the last 20-odd years in England, all sorts of legislation that should never have appeared.
Sportsmen and shooters fooled by politicians into thinking that England's age-old tradition of fox hunting would never be targeted or banned, now realizing, perhaps too little too late, that their traditions are no more secure than their freedoms.
This isn't about banning fox hunting. This is about the liberty of the individual to choose for him or herself what they do.
A future that's in doubt, and the largest peaceful protest in British history to try to change that has got many asking, where were these voices 6 years ago when there was an outright ban on handguns and pistol shooters were forced to surrender their firearms, confiscated by the government to be destroyed?
We hear people saying the proposed ban on fox hunting is the thin end of the wedge. I am a pistol shooter. As far as I'm concerned, we've already swallowed the wedge. And where does it go next?
Liberties that have already been sacrificed for the politicians' false promise of a safer society. Gun bans that, as predicted, have simply backfired.
We've seen about a 40% increase in firearms crime since the ban was introduced. That is not a success in my book.
We need to be armed, you know, we're not safe any longer. Everything is changing.
It's very simple. The authorities have no
way of controlling criminals so they control the law-abiding, because we're an easy target.
And now, some members of Parliament are questioning the government's anti-gun agenda, an agenda that has, without a doubt, failed.
The use of weapons in crime has risen dramatically. And it's very difficult to get government departments to openly accept the fact.
Politicians refusing to face the facts, while the police are forced to every day.
It's totally out of control.
This police officer, who feared he'd lose his job for speaking out, asked to remain anonymous. He said for the first time ever, bobbies are carrying firearms, but they're still outgunned by criminals who can buy whatever they want on the black market.
Every officer now in this country gets issued with body armour. When I joined the police service back in the 80s, we didn't have any of this. We had a wooden truncheon and a set of chain link handcuffs. The firearms laws have been tightened up since. Why do we still need this equipment? Simply because the criminals have the weapons and they're prepared to use them.
Gun policy's gone tragically wrong, and police morale at an all-time low.
I feel let down by the politicians, by the senior management in the police. I feel at present I cannot give the public the service they demand and expect.
And as this officer made very clear, it's a law built on a lie.
The politicians, basically, they have misled the public. They said, if we ban handguns, the country's going to be a safer place. They ban the handguns, the country is not a safer place. Why are British people not to be trusted? And I think that says a lot about the government.
Citizens left defenseless, now victims of the very laws passed to protect them, and asking how many more Tony Martins will there be. Martin, a Norfolk farmer, was forced to protect himself when no one else would, not the police and not the British justice system. What happened at this farmhouse owned by Tony Martin 4 years ago has struck a real nerve, not only in this country, but internationally. 2 men broke into Tony Martin's house. Both of them were shot. One of them was killed. And the man who fired that gun, Tony Martin, was initially sentenced to life in prison for murder. But many people think Tony Martin should never have spent 1 day in jail. They say he was just an innocent man protecting himself and his property.
Tony should not be in jail, not for what he did. He was perfectly within his rights, in my view, to look after his own property and his own life.
My thoughts is that I would do exactly the same, put in the same situation. I would not hesitate to do exactly the same.
I personally believe that, you know, if you're in your own house and people come in, then they should expect whatever they get.
Everybody around was saying the same thing. You must have a right to defend yourself. It has gone too far, swung so far in favour of the criminal.
Criminals like those in Tony Martin's case, who were no strangers to the law. 16-year-old Fred Barris, who was killed, already had 29 convictions. And 30-year-old Brendan Farron had 34 convictions and had been in prison for burglary. He was sentenced to 3 years for trying to break into Tony Martin's home. But after only serving 18 months, he's free while Tony Martin remains in jail. And he's now threatening to sue Martin using taxpayers' dollars.
The system is on the side of the criminal, not on the side of the victim. Go and rob somebody and then sue them because they've damaged you. It's absurd.
The injustice of a justice system. And although Tony Martin has had his life sentence reduced to manslaughter, he still sits behind bars here at High Point Prison in Suffolk, England, counting the days until he's released. I was the first reporter from the United States allowed to visit with Tony since he's been in prison. And although no cameras were allowed, I was able to talk with Tony by phone. And what you're about to hear is Tony Martin in his own words about that fateful night.
Well, I've never really said it publicly before, but I've had a pretty raw deal. I personally think it's very, very wrong for somebody to have to live in their house in fear. But for some unknown reason, there are people in this country who don't know the difference between defending yourself, protecting yourself, and malice aforethought. I thought it was the people that came in the house that were malice aforethought.
Chief Constable of Norfolk said that Tony shouldn't have used his gun, that he should have yelled for help while he was seeing the isolated location. I could scream furthermore and nobody would hear me at 2 o'clock in the morning. It's just a nonsense, I do believe.
It could have quite well been the dead man, because there's no question. The police in this area is totally inadequate. I mean, we get little or no support.
Police protection, residents here say they can't count on, and they're fed up with being denied the right to defend themselves.
We've been broken into several times before, and most of the people around here at one stage or another has either been broken into or had an attempt to do so.
This wasn't the first time you had a problem.
No, that was the third time this year that somebody had broken the house, yeah. You actually become a prisoner in your own house.
I have every sympathy. I genuinely do. But I can't say that the law shouldn't be what the law was. What I can say now is that because of that, we ought to review that particular law.
I think the Americans have a saying about it's better to be judged by 12 than carried by 6. Tony Martin tried that venture. He was judged. He is in prison. The story is not yet finished.
And neither is the story of a struggle to reclaim rights these honest citizens have already lost. Costly mistakes of trusting in a government that has left them unprotected. Their message to gun owners in America is simple. It will happen to you if you let it.
Jolly well could, and they ought to realise that. If they saw what we're seeing in this country, then they'll fight for it.
But if you don't do anything, you will lose your liberties, and make the effort. Don't be apathetic. Get out there and fight.
Learn from our experience and don't give an inch. Your constitution matters, your freedom matters.
Pericles said it way before me. Freedom is only for those who have the guts to defend it.
We don't have a chance in hell of getting those rights back.
Hello, Mr. Soprano 0125 here. I am making this video in response to the incident that occurred 2 days ago in a quiet town in Cumbria. Derek Bird, a cab driver in his 50s, had a mental breakdown, decided to go into town with a shotgun and a rifle, and decided to fire among a crowd, killing 12 people in the process, and injuring 25 others. The rampage lasted for hours. It could have been longer if he didn't decide to kill himself. It could have lasted for days, driving along in his cab, going from town to town, firing among a crowd. There is a small police force in Cumbria. They would have had a hard time catching up to him. Cumbria is pretty isolated. Hills, fields, grasslands, lake, countrysides. The biggest town in Cumbria is Kendal, and Kendal is pretty small. Gun control has been put into question, and the question they are asking is, should we have more restrictions and more ban on guns? Should we increase the sentence for carrying a firearm and increase it to 10 years, make it more strict? These are the wrong questions to ask. I think the questions that needs to be asked is, has gun control really worked? In case you haven't noticed, we are extremely strict on gun laws here in the United Kingdom, and there has been more shootings than ever since the ban was enforced. There are gangs in London, Manchester, etc. coming around, mugging, holding innocent people at gunpoint, robbery, etc. Some of you PC morons would argue that this sort of stuff has happened before when guns was not banned. Michael Ryan, 1986, the Hungerford Massacre, went on a rampage, started shooting people, killed himself. Then this came 2 years later, the Firearms Amendment Act of 1988, while the Tories was in power. More restrictions, ban on personal defence firearms, disarming law-abiding citizens because of one madman, just one, decided to go on a rampage. 2 days ago, something similar like that has happened. Just 2 days ago. Hey, the ban is enforced. More restrictions, ban on personal defence firearms, disarming law-abiding citizens. Nobody in Cumbria was there to stop him. They were disarmed. There was nothing they could do. The police didn't arrive in time, and 12 people died, 25 injured. In a gap of 2 decades since this wonderful act was enforced, designed to protect us from ourselves in case we have a mental breakdown, gun crime in the UK has increased. We can sure as hell protect us from ourselves, but we sure as hell cannot protect ourselves from gangs, thieves, muggers, robbers, And of course, the rarest occasion of all, a raving madman on a rampage shooting at us. Gun control is preposterous. You cannot stop someone from obtaining a firearm where the ban is enforced. A piece of paper, this Act, this Firearms Act, didn't stop Derek Bird from going on a rampage. It doesn't stop gangs from obtaining firearms and making their neighbourhood a shithole and making it more miserable for everyone else. There are more shooting incidents, more crime, more defenceless victims shot dead since the ban was enforced. Gun crime has doubled. It has progressed, increased, year by year by year. So, gun control is an impossible task to do. It cannot be done. You cannot control where guns go, which hands it falls upon. Gun control has failed to contain gang warfare in the big cities. Gun control has failed to lower gun-related crimes. And most of all, gun control has failed to protect the 12 people shot dead in Cumbria by this man who lost it.
You can't stop insane people from doing insane things by passing insane laws. That's insane.
We don't have a chance in hell of getting those rights back.
Mr. Dascombe, what we need right now is a clear message to the people of this country. This message must be read in every newspaper, heard on every radio, seen on every television. This message must resound throughout the entire interlink. I want this country to realize that we stand on the edge of oblivion. I want every man, woman and child to understand how close we are to chaos. I want everyone to remember why they need us.